Hey guys, it's Mariela. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. So on this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how much money I've made from one of my side hustles, which was Airbnb. I ran an Airbnb as a side hustle for a while. I want to say a little bit over a year, while I was also working a full-time in corporate America. So yeah, I wanted to share this information with you guys, because I know that right now Airbnb is something people are doing not just as a side hustle, but also as a business, like acquiring multiple properties and then renting them out. So Airbnb has been a big source of income for a lot of people. So I wanted to make this video. Should you be thinking of doing Airbnbs on your own? Should you be trying to do it as a not just some extra income, but as a full-time job? So I wanted to share this with you so you kind of get an idea of the possibilities, like kind of what goes into it, and how much money you can potentially make. So yeah, I'm also going to be sharing where was this Airbnb located, how was I running it, how was I cleaning it, how many reservations I was getting, how much I was pricing it for, and ultimately how much money I made, and the amount of time that I was running it for. So I hope you do find this information helpful, and of course, if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to smash the subscribe button and give this video an early thumbs up to help me out with the algorithm. Alright, so pretty much I ran an Airbnb after I graduated college in 2018. So I graduated college, I immediately got a job in corporate America. I was working a full-time job, a full-time corporate job. So I pretty much ran that Airbnb from about June 2018 to October 2019. And the reason I stopped running the Airbnb is because I was living in New York City. This Airbnb took place in Queens, New York, and in 2019 October, that's when I decided to move to Atlanta. So pretty much my living situation was that I was living in my father's home. So I stayed in this house for a while. I was in charge of paying all the bills. I had the entire house to myself, first and second floor. I didn't need that much space, so I decided to start renting out the second floor. So the location was Queens, New York. I lived pretty close to LaGuardia Airport, so it was a convenient location for people coming into LaGuardia. But I'm gonna be honest with you, it also wasn't the most convenient location because a lot of people that travel into New York City, they want to go to the city. They want to be in Manhattan. So the commute from Queens, New York from that side of Queens, New York to Manhattan was a little annoying. It was you had to take a bus and they had to take a train, so it was a terrible commute. But people were still staying in my Airbnb because I made it very cheap. So on the second floor, they did not have access to a kitchen. I put a little refrigerator or a microwave, whatever. They did not have a kitchen. So I was renting out this Airbnb for, I think, if I remember correctly, it was no more than $85 a night. There was 3 bedrooms upstairs, so it could technically sleep up to 6 people. That's how I had it. It could sleep up to 6 people. So for a lot of people that were, traveling into New York City in groups or, families or whatever, this was pretty convenient. I did have it that people had to stay for a minimum of 4 nights. Because I was doing everything myself. I was cleaning the Airbnb myself in between guests. So it was a lot of work for me. So for me it was I'm not doing all this work unless people are staying at least 4 nights. Alright, so let me look at these numbers. I actually have not logged into my Airbnb account in years. We're in 2022 now, and then I stopped running this Airbnb in 2019. But I was damn, let me show this, to you guys. So this is helpful information, right? All right, so I actually logged into my Airbnb and I can't find the listing. I don't remember deleting the listing. I feel I paused it, but I do not recall deleting it, but I cannot find it. I wish I could, so I could show you guys pictures or whatever. But like I said, it was just one of those old houses, New York City, 3 bedrooms, no kitchen, no nothing. So it wasn't the nicest thing, okay? But people were paying the price for not the nicest thing ever. All right, so let me look at my transaction history. So yeah, the first stay that I had was on July 2018, and then the last one was on October 2019. And so between July 2018 and October 2019, I made $22,644 with 18 cents from Airbnb. Like I said, this was a side hustle for me. Like, I was working a full-time job where I was getting paid, like, you know, okay. So this was just very convenient for me because it generated enough for me to pay, you know, I was living in this entire house by myself. So it generated enough for me to pay absolutely all the bills and all the expenses that the house, you know, needed to be paid for. And I was also, because I was living in my father's house and I was technically paying him rent, I was also sending my father, I think, like about half of that money. So, you know, it was a win-win for the both of us. Like, I was still paying him rent, so he was getting some money, and I was making enough money to pay absolutely all the house expenses. So that meant that all of the money that I was making from my full-time job wasn't even going towards my living expenses, because they were already paid off. So I was in a pretty good financial situation, in the sense that, like, all of my expenses were being paid for, and I was saving as much money as possible, because my goal, guys, like, after I graduated from college, I knew that I didn't want to stay in New York City forever. I knew that I didn't want to be employed by someone else forever. I knew that eventually I wanted to start a business. So my goal was to just, like, save as much money as possible. So having this side hustle, you know, Airbnb as a side hustle, like, really helped me out, because it really helped me to be able to save as much money as possible from the income that was coming from my full-time job. All right, now let me tell you about the struggles of running an Airbnb. All right, guys, like I said, the property that I was in, it was not the nicest, okay? Like, it was fully booked all the time, because again, it was so cheap, and like finding something for $85 a night in New York City for, like, you know, 6 people, that is downright, like, non-existent. So people were, like, willing to stay on my property because of the price. And even, you know, even though the commute to, like, the city was trash, people were still willing to stay there because of the price, right? But yeah, there was a lot of problems. First of all, like, it was an old property. There was always something freaking breaking in this house. Like, I remember, you know, once I had, like, the water heater tank stopped working, and I had guests over there, and they were very upset about it. So that was a problem. I remember once, like, the generator blew out, so there was, like, no freaking electricity. That was a problem. Sometimes, you know, during the winter, there was actually a couple of months during the winter that I was not able to run the Airbnb because the heat stopped working. New York City winter is like nothing to be like playing with. It was very cold, so so pretty much I potentially could have made a lot more money with this Airbnb, but during the winter months, I think from like October 2018 to like March 2019, I was not renting it out, just because like I was constantly having problems with like the heater. And yeah, having people over in your house, like when the heat is like messed up, was like not a good idea. Like, I myself was using like electric heaters, but I also did not trust having people in my house with electric heaters. And then, you know, when people are visiting, they're constantly going out. I didn't trust them, like, you know, just leaving the electric heaters on the whole day. I'm like, y'all about to burn down this house. So I'm like, no. So I was not renting for because of those problems. You know, there were weeks and months that I was not able to rent. Honestly, and just dealing with people, it's a problem. Like, if you're the direct contact, people complain about a lot of things. People are always asking questions. People nowadays, like Airbnb, like, so I have self-check-in. Like, I was not trying to ever see these people ever. So, but then you have like people constantly like hitting you up, asking you questions, asking you like just like things to do around there.
Like, hey, like, what restaurants do you recommend? What this do you recommend? How do I get to the city?
Like, whatever. And I'm just like, you're hitting me up. You have a phone, which means you have internet access. Like, Google it. Like, leave me alone. Like, I even included on the listing, like, I'm just renting you out the space. Like, don't expect me to be like a super host and like walk you by the hand on like exploring New York City. Like, you will never see me. Like, I made it very clear. I was not trying to interact with people. Like, you know, sometimes honestly, like, I didn't feel safe because these are people that were like in my house, and I'm like, you know, female living alone. I just didn't want them to know that I was living there, you know, alone, because you never know what like crazy people are gonna be in your house. Like, if you're gonna have an Airbnb, just know that when people go on Airbnb, they expect the same hospitality as they would in a hotel. So like, you have to constantly be answering their questions, you have to constantly be in contact with them, and you have to be ready to like help them in whatever it is that they need. So that was something that personally, like, I personally was not willing to do, honestly. So sometimes like it did become a struggle when I had people that were like, you know, needy. They wanted a little bit more from me, and that was like kind of annoying, you know. But then sometimes I had guests that like, they would check in, they would check out, and I would not even hear from them. I would not even see them. I'm like, did these people even come? Like, I don't even know. Those were the best guests. Those were the best guests for sure. But yeah, guys, that was my experience from running an Airbnb. I personally did not enjoy it, hence why it is not something I thought about doing like as a full-time business. Like, you know, once I moved to Atlanta, I didn't really think about like, oh, let me acquire, you know, properties and do like Airbnb. Like, it's something I honestly did not think of doing because I did not enjoy being in the hospitality business, I guess. And also, like, as soon as I moved, the pandemic hit, so like I don't even think it was an option, even if I wanted to. But yes, is Airbnb something you can make money out of? Absolutely. I mean, especially if you are in a location where like tourism is high, right? Like, I was in New York City, even though my property wasn't in a place where it was like immediately close to like the you know, sightseeing attractions in New York City. Because I made the price cheap enough, people were still willing to stay there and sacrifice, you know, making that commute every day into the city. So definitely, if you are in, you know, a place where tourism is high or you're like close enough, definitely makes sense. If you're in the big cities, like, absolutely go for it. It definitely is a good way to generate income if you're able to keep it profitable. Of course, like, if you go and rent out a unit, make sure, like, don't go and rent out a unit that's gonna cost, you know, $1,000, over $1,000 a month, but then it's not very much in a touristy area where people are going to be, you know, constantly booking. You definitely want to be in an area where, like, hopefully you have like your unit is booked like at all times. That would be like the absolute best case scenario. And remember, there's a lot of things that go into it. You gotta be in constant communications with your guests. You have to clean up. I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't even think about Airbnb. Like, I absolutely hated having to clean and like wash the sheets for other people. Like, ugh. Touching other people's germs, like, I was not into it. I mean, if you're making enough money for it, absolutely, you could just go and hire a cleaning lady or like cleaning services that could do that for you, so you never even have to like go to the unit. Like, it's always getting taken care of. But of course, you gotta make sure that like that makes sense in terms of how much money you're making. If not, you're probably gonna have to take care of those things yourself. All right, guys, that is all I have to say about this. I hope this information helped you out in some way. Be sure again to smash that subscribe button, comment down below any thoughts, questions that you might have, anything that I might have, you know, left out. And other than that, I will see you on the next one. Bye.